And 10, Nightmare. One thing that was mentioned when we first saw it, but more so forgotten, is the complexity of the security logbook. It messed with everything we knew about the series, but then messed with everything we thought we knew about the logbook itself. One of the key things that sticks out to me is the fact that Mike drew Nightmare on page 41. Those were just an illusion, which we know thanks to the Ultimate Custom Night's death voice lines from characters like Nightmare Freddy, who said this time there is more than an illusion to fear, and I am given flesh to be your tormentor. So, how could Mike know what Nightmare looks like? Crying Child was in a coma while he was seeing them, so he couldn't have described them, especially in that much detail. Where did he get it from? And at 9, FNAF World. Hell. FNAF World is a game I'm sure we'd all like to forget. However, what I'm seeing again and again is the importance of this game from a lore standpoint, both from the Helpy Facts lists as well as this one. From the Helpy Facts list, Helpy looks very similar to the style of the characters from FNAF World, and I propose that he could be a crossover character, linking the two games together in an unexpected way as an example of how you can escape a game world. But now I've seen that the characters of Tangle, White Rabbit, and Bounce Pot can all appear in Ultimate Custom Night, in motion using their battle animations. This not only links the game to the main FNAF canon, but also shows that William's idea of entering a video game and escaping from one came from FNAF World, a game that revolves around a game affecting the real world. And it ain't blood on the cover. The security logbook is a real point of contention for the series. Whatever, I'm not talking about what's inside the book content-wise. I'm talking about how there are literal pages covered or splattered with blood, and the restaurant just gave it to you as if nothing was wrong. What the hell happened to cause blood to get all over this thing? And thanks to the finish on the blood on the cover, at least the hardcover version, it's shiny, meaning it must be new. And I'm prone to nosebleeds, but I know that that is not a nosebleed. You don't lose that much blood. Well, unless you're me, but that's because I have veins that poke out of my nose, okay? I had to get the cauterized in elementary school, which means I had to get like 20 small burns on my nose in each side, okay? It was a mess. But not even that would generate this much blood. So why is it covered in blood? We see coffee stains, that makes sense, but blood? And why are they only mentioning that someone else wrote in the book, not bled all over it? That's not sanitary. And it's 7, corruption. The Ultimate Custom Night voice lines are very useful for these lists, and while going over all of them, I noticed a distinct difference between pre- and post-FNAF 6 animatronics, particularly from Baby and the Puppet, since those are the only ones that were in both. Since the normal versions of both Baby and the Puppet say things like, "Seeing you powerless is like music to me," and "I guess you forgot about me." But as soon as we get to the FNAF 6 scrapped and trapped versions, we get things that are much darker, with lines like, "Time for your controlled shock," and "Let's see how many pieces I can cut you into from Scrap Baby," and "I've been looking for you, and now I will never let you go," along with "It will all be over soon" from Lefty, which is Charlotte's voice, but softer, calmer, and whispering, which makes it hella creepy. Considering how even though these kids are dead, they're still relatively positive about William's undoing, so much so that they can stay relatively positive and upbeat. But once he's escaped so many times, they finally break and start losing their optimism, resulting in darker views and more aggressive death lines, which is honestly one of the darker things in the series to me. These kids get corrupted even after being optimistic after their death, which is horrifying to see. And once you notice, you can't unsee it. That's really sad. And at 6, performance. It has been stated before that the voice actor for William Afton, PJ Hayward, based his performance for the character off of Anthony Hopkins' version of Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, who, if you didn't know, is a cold-blooded cannibal serial killer in the movie. So bad that he's behind a full glass wall instead of bars, so he won't bite your face off. What if this is for more reasons than just being creepy? I mean, no body, no crime, right? If William was eating the kids his robots were trapping, it could cause them enough agony to create more remnant, and more remnant means more studying for the mad scientist, and one step closer to the answer to immortality. He didn't take killing kids off the table, something that most people in prison will even kill you for if that's why you're thrown in the slammer, so eating them isn't really too much of a stretch for this guy. Maybe it started off with him thinking that that's how he was going to get the answer. I mean, he originally stuffed them into the stomachs of the animatronics, right? Halfway through number 5, final moments. Something seems off to me about this game. Why would William be tortured in hell by a version of himself? That version, of course, being being Springtrap, and I think it's an issue that multiple people have, and why the whole mic trap thing is so popular. Well, this is probably William's life just flashing before his eyes. Every animatronic in this game William has had something to do with. He was there in FNAF 6, he was Springtrap, he created the animatronics and the sister location animatronics, he caused the nightmare animatronics to be created in the mind of Crying Child. This is basically his whole life flashing before his eyes, but not in order, all at once. Torturing him for his misdeeds and the horrible things he's done. Maybe he regrets it and that's why he shows up as well. Or maybe he only regrets losing his children. Hence why all his version says is "I always come back," since he hopes his children could do the same, or wishes they could. And at 4, Nightmare voice line. In Ultimate Custom Night, you can fight off Nightmare, and his voice lines when he kills you can really prove what we've all been thinking. Well, most of us. Or some of us. I don't really know the ratio to Wilhelm versus Mikatory believers in the comments. Nightmare's voice lines include, "You will not be spared, you will not be saved," indicating that someone has been spared or saved before. But from what? Well, this next line tells us, "I am your wickedness made of flesh." And who out of Mike and William is wicked? William, the killer of the series. His wickedness is killing, therefore Nightmare would be William's desire to kill personified. He also says, "The shadow fears me," and until this point I didn't know if he meant death or William himself. However, I think that this proves he means William, since the purple guy is the shadow of a man. William either fears his own desire to kill, or he fears the fact that it took his children from him, both Elizabeth and Crying Child. And to further prove this is William, Nightmare says, "I am here to claim what is left of you," since he was burnt to a crisp in FNAF 6's fire. So there isn't really much left, just like how his wickedness came to claim Crying Child. And at 3, Lefty. Lefty, as we know, is an acronym for an animatronic meant to lure, encapsulate, fuse, transport, and extract the puppet and bring it to the FNAF 6 location. However, thanks to Ultimate Custom Night, we now know that there is room for more than just the puppet inside of Lefty, since when killed by Lefty, you can hear it say things like, "Shh, there is room for one more," and "Come spend eternity inside with me," along with "I'm so glad I found you, now let me make some room for you," which heavily indicates that maybe Lefty was also meant to capture William if he didn't make his way back on his own, since the order of salvaging is Molten Freddy, Springtrap, Scrap Baby, and then Lefty. So Henry could have just sent Lefty a command to come back once he got word that William had been salvaged, since Michael would have had to let him know as instructed in paragraph 4 of his contract. So Lefty could have been made to get both the puppet, also known as Charlotte, and William, forcing William to confront one of his first victims, and the one that started his undoing. Another one that he should not have killed, dare I say. Another one, not the actual one, chill out. And at 2, hallucinations. Some believe that there are 2 spirits possessing the security logbook, and that one of them is Crying Child. But I believe that these altered texts aren't another spirit, since it wouldn't make much sense for the 2 spirits to communicate in different ways, one using faded text and the other one altering what was already in the book, which seems very difficult to me. I believe that these are hallucinations that we're seeing from Mike's perspective. He writes in the book in red ink, and that's established early on. But by the end of the book, Mike is incredibly tired and stressed, as indicated by the incident logs on page 108. Something happened at 8:11, but we don't know if it was AM or PM. Considering how we don't start our shifting game until late, we can assume AM. However, we wouldn't get to work at exactly 12. He'd be there beforehand. And if he was having to fight off animatronics all night, he would certainly be stressed. Stress and fatigue would certainly cause hallucinations, and even if we aren't seeing this from Mike's perspective, we would be seeing it from ours. Maybe this is where Michael got the idea to use the name Mike in the first game. Maybe by reading this, we are Michael Afton learning about who we are. This could be where we get the idea to go to sister location, or it could be just before our father contacts us to go do so. Finally, in at number 1, death by Afton. So many people in the series die because of William Afton. Obviously, he's the killer, the catalyst, the one who started it all. However, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, at least when she's possessed a robot. Remember FNAF World's original ending, the introduction of Baby? Well, she ended up killing Henry, the man who's sitting at the desk. We know this is Henry because, well, he says he made Baby and can't deactivate her, but he ended up getting killed. William wasn't dead at this point, and Henry was the only other one who could have helped in the creation of Baby. He did so not knowing what William was planning, I'm sure, but then Baby kills him. Now, Circus Baby's Pizza World was shut down after 1 day because of what it did to Elizabeth, so this would most likely take place after that, meaning that Elizabeth was inside Baby when she killed Henry. Elizabeth Afton, the sweet little girl who got too close to Baby, took Henry's life. It's kind of poetic when you think about it. Henry's daughter was taken by William, and Henry was taken by William's daughter. And it's 10, the bite of 87. The Bite of 87 is one of the biggest contention points in the whole FNAF series. It makes some theories, breaks others, and has been debated since the very first game when we learned about this very mysterious incident. However, we've never really been able to determine who caused the bite. It's typically thought to be Jeremy who got bit, but who did the biting? Some think Mangle, others think Fredbear, and some think Toy Chica. And some think Chica thanks to Ultimate Custom Night, which honestly just outright tells us who caused the bite if you listen to Toy Chica's death lines. One of which being, "Where's my beak?" Lodged in your forehead, of course.
Where's my beak? Lodged in your forehead, of course.
Which is where the frontal lobe is located, which is the part of the brain removed in the Bite of 87. This could also allude to Scott's clue on MatPat's FNAF livestream that said, why would Toy Chica be missing her beak? And it would be because she caused the Bite of 87, and without the beak, she couldn't hurt anyone else. Like how I keep saying my pug can't really hurt anyone because he can't fit his flat mouth around you unless you willingly give him a finger or something. I don't know why he scares people. And the 9 Scrap Trap. What the hell happened to Springtrap between games to cause such warps? Sure, he was burnt in FNAF 3, but we've seen him alive and well and not damaged in Sister Location's Night 7 ending cutscene, so where did all this additional damage and warping come from? The head becomes larger and so do the feet. I genuinely don't know how this would make sense. We know they're the same person thanks to Ultimate Custom Night's voice lines, but I'm so confused as to what could have happened. I'm sure the extra damage comes from fending off wild animals, since you know, he's a body that would attract scavengers, but how did the head of the suit get bigger? It's not like it evolved. My only guess is that William either broke into some Fazbear warehouse like the one he visits in the Man in Room 1280, or he made a new one to try to protect him better, since we see extensive damage and I don't really know how much time there is between Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator, so like, he could have been out there for a while. And it ate Ballora. FNAF Ultimate Custom Night really has a lot of lore hints and clues for us, so it will be appearing a lot on this list and in other lists in the future, I'm sure. I'm just now starting to understand the importance of this game for all of FNAF lore. One of these clues, however, is one of Ballora's death lines from Ultimate Custom Night. After killing you, Ballora will on occasion say, "These are strange circumstances that have brought us together."
These are strange circumstances that have brought us together.
And I'm sorry, but based on her other lines, I don't think she's just talking about how they're in hell or in purgatory. I think that this is about how they met. Well, how William and the woman that Ballora represents met. In a previous video, I theorized that maybe Vlad and Clara from Immortal and the Restless perhaps represent William and Henry's wife, a scandalous affair that drove him into killing Charlotte so that he could be with her, since she would have no ties to Henry anymore. But I wasn't sure of it. But honestly, those would be strange circumstances that could have brought them together. I mean, maybe he didn't kill Charlotte to be with her, but killing Charlotte drove her away from Henry into the arms of another man. Williams, perhaps. I mean, she asks, why do you hide inside your walls? Maybe she's talking to Henry and not William. And it's 7 Payoff. There has been a lot of crap that goes down in these restaurants. Missing kids, murder, animatronics that they felt needed access to a crime database to scan everyone that comes into the restaurant that ended up failing. But even after all of this, no lawsuits or anything? We saw papers talking about the missing children's incident, but nothing about lawsuits. The company shut down to downsize, but we've seen no evidence of a lawsuit or arrests. Sure, they had an investigation, but not a good one when there was obvious dead body stench coming from the animatronics. I don't care how sweaty and gross these kids and this pizza is, nothing would make it smell that bad normally. This to me indicates some form of a payoff at the very least, like maybe William has the police in his pocket, or a deal with someone saying that if he finds the key to living forever, that he shares it and he gets away. There has to be something more here. If I was a parent, I wouldn't stop until my kid had found justice. Like, where did these 15 kids' parents go? And at 6, the one you should not have added. Scott has added a whole load of characters into the series, so much so that there are too many characters for my taste in Ultimate Custom Night. But some of the characters he's added are a little too familiar for him, and it could have lore implications that we don't know about yet. Firstly, Scott added himself into FNAF lore. Sure, it's not him, it's not Scott Cawthon, but he is the face of the indie game developer that made some games about the tragedies in the FNAF world. He used a picture of himself when he could have used anyone, hell, a stock photo, or even nobody. Then we have Cassidy, the one you should not have killed. This one is Scott's son, as confirmed by Scott himself in either a Reddit or Steam post, I don't quite remember which, meaning that Scott's son, in universe, is dead. Yikes. And he also added the rest of his family, just subtly, since all the FNAF 4 pictures of family or kids that are visible in the hallways are of his family, since you didn't have to pay for any stock images or anything, as confirmed by Scott in the same post I referred to earlier, addressing the one you should not have killed. The one you should not have added, since now they're technically dead. Get it now? Halfway through number 5, Special Delivery Game. We know that Scott's in-universe stand-in created games based on the events in the Fazbear restaurants, but we don't know what those games are. Some think the 8-bit mini-games, others think the FNAF 6 mini-games. I think it could be Security Breach, but what about Special Delivery? Well, we learn in Fazbear Frights the Man in Room 1280 that everyone knows what William did, and they hate him for it. So much so that they actually try to smother him while he's in a coma in the hospital. So why would they sell a Springtrap mini pack for 2.5 thousand Faz coins in Special Delivery? Isn't that just sensationalizing the guy that killed all those kids? Cause like, this pack gives the player a Springtrap plush suit for Endo, 3 Springtrap lures, and nobody seems to bat an eye. They even include other versions of Springtrap, like the poison one, who's purple for God's sake. So why on earth would that happen? Why would Fazbear Entertainment let that happen, especially if they were trying to rebuild their rep? If these are meant to be real animatronics going to people's houses, that's a horrible idea. However, they aren't. It's simply a game that was made by Scott Cawthon in-universe, meant to sensationalize and earn money off multiple tragedies. That's pretty messed up if you ask me. Also, I know it's not Scott, it's just he used his picture, but like, he has no name yet, so I'm calling him Scott, okay? And at 4, Wake Up. Night Marion, or Night Marionette, whatever you want to call it, is one of the scariest animatronics there is. Added in the Halloween DLC for FNAF 4, Scott deemed him not canon, but he's still here in Ultimate Custom Night, saying, "I am the dark reflection of what you have created."
I am the fearful reflection of what you have created.
The puppet, since William killed Charlotte, who ended up possessing it. But that's not the line I wanted to focus on, we knew that already. What I wanted to acknowledge was the line, "This is a nightmare you won't wake from."
This is a nightmare that you won't wake from.
This is a subtle way of saying that someone woke up from the nightmare before. Like, someone may have woken up before, but this is a nightmare you won't wake from. Who would have woken up, you ask? Who else was the only other person to see the nightmare animatronics? Crying Child. Oh wait, same thing. This line also helps prove my point. Crying Child somehow survived or was saved from death, like Nightmare also seems to hint towards, but we heard a flat line at the end of FNAF 4. That's because he was removed from the machine, not because he had died. I'm telling you, it's a thing. And at 3, Debunked. On April 1st of the year or the year after it was released, Scott added Nightmare Freddy, Foxy, and Phone Guide to Ultimate Custom Night. Each of their mechanics was based on a debunked FNAF theory. Most interestingly, Nightmare Freddy's mechanics were based off of dream theory, proving that these games are actually happening and it's not a dream, which makes everything more complicated because now, God, we have to figure this out properly, and you can't just go around saying it was all a dream. Anyway, the dream theory along with Foxy being helpful and the Phone Guy being Purple Guy were all confirmed 100% false at this point, resulting in a whole lot more issues for the series, because I can't just say that it was all a dream. Even if I wasn't doing it before, now I can't do it ever. Only FNAF 4 was a dream. It was like a coma dream. Great. Ultimately in at number 2, Burning. Look, I'm all for setting the souls of the damned free of their chains and letting them move on, but we need to remember the souls that we're dealing with in this series. They're typically kids, right? But doesn't it feel weird knowing what happens when you think of it like that? Sure, we set the kids free in FNAF 3, but we know the remnant can only be destroyed with fire, and since the kids are still here thanks to the remnant, we have to burn Fazbear Frights down, causing the fire at the end of the game, but also causing the souls of the victims to be set free. We're burning the kids on the regular in this series, and in FNAF 6 we burn a load of them thanks to Molten Freddy, who's entered, so he has multiple different souls. And the only one who wasn't a kid, William, managed to escape and got sent to the hospital where he would be taken to a Fazbear warehouse so he could possess a hard drive and come back to life again. It's nuts, man. I don't understand why so many kids have to suffer in this series. Scott must not be good with discipline. Or he uses what happens in these games as discipline. Attaboy, Scott. Strike fear into their hearts. That's what my dad did. Finally, in at number 1, the real protagonist. Orville the Elephant in Ultimate Custom Night is one of the animatronics that's really memeable. Not as memeable as his counterparts perhaps, but he does give us a lot of information if you're paying attention. Take this one line from Ultimate Custom Night for example. He tried to release you, he tried to release us, but I won't let that happen. I will keep you here, I will hold you here, no matter how many times they burn us.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
Hold on a second. If this is really the voice of Cassidy, Golden Freddy, speaking through the elephant, then why would they say he tried to release you? He tried to release us. Henry was the one who tried to release William in FNAF 6, we know this from his end speech, and we know that's the one that Cassidy is referring to since they said I won't let that happen, which is why they're doing it at that exact moment, but we thought that Michael was the one who released the spirits of the kids in FNAF 3, which is where Golden Freddy has their happiest day. Could it be that we've been playing as Henry this whole time with the exception of Sister Location? I mean, we didn't release any souls in Sister Location. That would mean Henry is Mike Schmidt, and that the Mike who owned the logbook would be Henry, and that we'd be reading it as Michael Afton? This may deserve its own video. Holy crap, this could change everything. In 10, a gift to Relish. What a gift to Relish, a victim that can't perish, is one of Nightmare Freddy's voice lines in Ultimate Custom Night. However, we originally used this as a way to prove that William was in hell, but now, with the release of the Man in Room 1280 from Fazbear Fright's book In the Flesh, we know that William was only in a coma while this game was taking place, making this a subtle reference to how William always comes back, the soul of one of his victims that was keeping him alive in order for him to suffer, and now they could do that even more with him in a coma. Does this make the one who possessed him the one that you should not have killed? And if that is the case, and the one you should not have killed isn't Cassidy, who is it? And if Cassidy was the one that was keeping William alive, instead of two spirits possessing Golden Freddy, could it be one spirit possessing two things? A person and the suit. We know that the one you should not have killed is special and incredibly angry, so their agony would be extremely powerful, probably the most powerful. Could this be what Scott was hinting at this whole time? Probably not, if I'm being honest. And at 9, nothing to lose. The Shadow Fears Me is one of Nightmare's Ultimate Custom Night death lines. However, Nightmare is a representation of William's wickedness, and since William is the purple guy who is meant to represent a shadow, and Nightmare represents death, that would mean that William fears death, which makes sense, especially when 2 of his kids were killed by things he made. But what happens after he no longer feels that sense of horror, once he's accepted death? I mean, we see it happen in the Man in Room 1280, where he asks to be taken to a Fazbear warehouse so that he can die. So why is that meaningful? Because once you accept death as an inevitability, you have nothing to lose. And the scariest thing isn't animatronic murder or being eaten alive by nightmare versions of characters that used to be your friends, it's a man with nothing to lose, because no matter what, you can't get any lower. It's honestly one of the scariest things in life. And once William no longer feared death, he was able to ascend in a sense, transferring his consciousness into a hard drive and becoming basically immortal. So yeah, that's pretty damn terrifying. And it 8 speeches. Telling a story comes with its own pressures and expectations. Mr. Hippo here is right, it does. We expect everything to lead somewhere, every tiny detail to mean something, and if it doesn't, we feel kinda robbed, I guess. But we're going to nitpick the hell out of these speeches, so I guess we haven't learned our lesson, have we? Why are these speeches about telling stories? Mr. Hippo, in my opinion, is Scott's stand-in in game. He uses Mr. Hippo to speak to us, and more or less MatPat, about trying to find every little detail in the series to find out the whole story. And honestly, we already knew that. But he keeps saying that not everything has meaning, and that there's no bigger story. What if that's true? What if there is no bigger story here, and we're just connecting things that don't actually connect? Each game could be its own universe for all we know, and Scott could just be telling us outright through these speeches. He also says something that I've been saying for a while, that we shouldn't believe every theory we hear, or treat them as fact and start assuming, because we may assume the wrong thing, which is what I've been saying whenever someone says that one of my theories isn't right, because another theory has proved me wrong. Like, they're both just theories. Game theories. And we should just enjoy the series. And that's what Mr. Hippo is trying to say too. Maybe Mr. Hippo is supposed to be me. And it's 7, Stranger Danger. Ultimate Custom Night has some funny lines and moments. Comedy gold in the form of Mr. Hippo's death lines, or rather speeches about Lemonade, and Happy Frog and her ninja skills. However, one of the most iconic and funny lines has to come from Ned Bear. I don't know why these animatronics go so hard in this game, but whatever. Not only does he joke about being killed by obscure secondary characters, but he also just yells stranger danger.
Stranger danger!
I think it's funny and a nice detail because, well, that's the one line that could have saved countless lives. But instead, the kids followed Golden Bonnie to the back room for more pizza, and instead of getting stuffed crust, they got stuffed into a suit. Literally, stranger danger would have saved their little lives, but they didn't listen to their parents. It's a shame, really, and it's kind of nuts of me to think that this is funny, but I mean, it is. Ned Bear is the only one thinking straight in this world, and I am here for it. I stan Ned Bear. Ned's Declassified Pizzeria Survival Guide. Scott, get the rights and make it a thing. And in 6, Markiplier could be canon. Did everyone else forget that Markiplier was in the launch trailer for Special Delivery, or was it just me? Because while reading up on the game looking for clues, it was listed right there in the trivia section. However, apparently it's unknown to even Markiplier himself if his inclusion in the trailer makes him canon. However, this would make him canon in my mind. Since Scott has made Map Pack canon, I'm sure Markiplier's inclusion makes him canon as well. So yeah, we're all out here thinking that Map Pack's canonicity could mean plenty of things for the series, but Markiplier is canon too. But that begs the question, who is he? Obviously he isn't the YouTuber Markiplier since he's working for the Fazbear Entertainment Company, but he has to be someone, right? Well, this may be a wild theory, but hear me out. What if he's William Afton? The guy is wearing a suit with a red cracked tie and is frequently placed in front of blue and purple backgrounds. Not only that, but he is also the last person we see before we see the first animatronic in the trailer, Springtrap. I know that at this point in the timeline, William Afton would be dead and possessing Vanny, but what if he recorded all of this beforehand? What if he had planned for all of this before the spring locking? It's doubtful, but a possibility. This could also be Markiplier playing Michael Afton, who could have been asked to film this while working at one of the previous locations since he looked so much like his father. But remember, before being cut off by a glitch, Markiplier says, "We're always watching out for you." And the first line William says in the trailer, "I'm watching you." Halfway through number 5, Exotic Butters. The security logbook is really appearing a lot in this video, and that's because in the hype for Security Breach, we've forgotten all about the that is this book. Not only does Mike draw Nightmare in the book, a representation of Crying Child's death, he also draws things connecting him to other games, like Exotic Butters and baskets of money from Sister Location, or a gravestone seemingly similar to the ones from FNAF 6's gravestone ending, or the casual bongos from Sister Location, and a Freddy Fazbear logo with blood surrounding Freddy's mouth, like how Crying Child got chomped, or spooky animatronics and ghost sheets, which could be a reference to the missing children's incident from the first game, since FNAF VR's Curse of Dreadbear DLC wasn't out yet. And this is ironically on the same page as the maze, like the corn maze from that game. And why is there a picture of mangled up Chica on the very last page of this book? So many damn questions that we just forgot about thanks to the new game. It's exactly what he wanted. And at 4, who is Vanny? We know that the main antagonist of the next game, Security Breach, will be Vanny, the reluctant follower of William Afton, whose normal version is most likely Vanessa, the security guard from promotional material. However, how did Vanny get possessed? Was she originally Tape Girl? Because if she was, why are the pieces of Glitch Trap still separated in FNAF VR? In Help Wanted, we need to collect all 16 tapes in order for Glitch Trap to attack us, so we can potentially beat the game by losing to him. So if Tape Girl had already done that, or tried to at least, why are those tapes still separate? Wouldn't they still be together in the tape room? It's not like William would have made her split them up again, or even let her do that if she tried. So who does that leave? Us. We're the ones who collect the tapes. We're the ones who lose to Glitch Trap. And no matter what you identify as, you aren't yourself in that game. You're whoever is testing the game. It's not going to be you yourself. It's going to be the protagonist that Scott intended. And who is that? Vanny. We are Vanessa. We get possessed, and now we need to help ourselves break free of William's control in the next game. Things are about to get messy, and I'm saying that about FNAF. So you know that this is going to be a show. It's already messy now. Oh, just you wait. Getting close to the end in number 3, FNAF Multiverse. The FNAF Multiverse is already a thing. The original novels are their own universe, despite sharing characters and plot points. The Fazbear Frights books are their own universe, even though they help answer other questions that we've had, like Scott said himself when he announced the original 5, and the games are their own universe. But what if the games themselves are multiple universes? There are so many points that conflict with themselves when trying to establish a timeline. Map had decided to put emphasis on the events that were mentioned later in the timeline, but what if they conflict because they're not the same Earth? I mean, we have the FNAF game Multiverse thanks to the Fazbear Fanverse initiative Scott started, funding some installments in new fan games and helping them with marketing, retail, and merch. So why not have the games or the events of the games that don't help the timeline take place in another universe? I mean, it would screw up a load of stuff, but it could help explain a load of stuff too. He didn't start a fanverse for no reason. There has to be some sort of tie-in. Penultimately, in at number 2, Canon. Night Marion was added in FNAF 4's Halloween DLC, along with Night Mangle and Nightmare Balloon Boy. Night Mangle's my version of Nightmare Mangle. However, Scott only deemed Nightmare Balloon Boy canon. The other two were labeled as non-canon. But if that's truly the case, why does Night Marion show up in Ultimate Custom Night? Same thing with Nightmare Mangle. Why are these characters included in Ultimate Custom Night if they weren't meant to actually have these characters in universe? This doesn't really make sense to me, since this was a big help with MatPat determining the timeline, since we knew that in FNAF 4 Crying Child didn't know who the puppet or Mangle was yet, and because, you know, FNAF 2 location. But now they're fully canon? Or was it just that he saw them but didn't know why? And from that, this opens up so many doors and questions. Was it really Crying Child's mind that caused these hallucinations, or did William design them? If he did, why did he add stomach mouths? And why include animatronics your kid hasn't even seen yet, or may not even exist yet? Why is this a thing? Okay, how can this work with the way that we currently understand the timeline? We don't even understand the timeline. Are these characters canon, or when they were added, was it a glimpse into the future? Is this the start of the multiverse? I can't do this anymore. Finally, in at number 1, game theory is canon. A huge shout out to the user SockGems in the comments of the last part of this list for this little Easter egg. While I talked about MatPat being canon in the series last time, SockGems pointed out that he already was thanks to Fetch, the first book in the series. Since a classmate says the signature line of "that's just a theory," and the book says that he said it just like his favorite YouTuber. That means that even before In the Flesh, the YouTube channel of Game Theory was canon, and that means he's making theories about video games. And since we know that there are video games about what took place at Fazbear restaurants in the FNAF universe, does that mean that MatPat in that universe is making theories about the in-universe FNAF games, like how he makes theories about the FNAF universe in the real world? Because that's a mind that I was not expecting. And since I've only read the book In the Flesh, I did not know about this. So thank you, SockGems. And I love the name, by the way.